Okay, welcome to the ConunDRUM podcast. This week is the second half of my conversation with my cousin and award-winning multi-instrumentalist Roland Beaulieu. We carry on from the last episode. This time we dive into some of the great Canadian female vocalists that he's had the opportunity to work with over the recent months. We also talk about his drumming influences and his passion for the recording process. And that's just a portion of what we cover. So I don't want to dive too much into that. So just take a seat, dig in, and enjoy the rest of my conversation with Roland Beaulieu. There's a couple other key people that you've played with. That one that I met personally, which I'll get to in a minute. But you also got to play with Carroll Baker.
Yeah, that was cool.
I mean,
for sure.
And since then you've developed a bit of a friendship with her. I mean,
Yeah, no doubt.
Posting on each other's, commenting and joking at each other.
That was a great experience.
Did you audition for that, or did she headhunt you?
No, you know what? That was probably the weirdest call I ever got. I think I told her that story. I was, oftentimes here, like I'm sure it's everywhere, referrals are always how I get work. Most times how I get work. And so I ended up getting a call and they were like, would you be interested from someone? And I'd be like, would you be interested in playing for Carroll Baker at such and such date? And so on. I'm like, well, yeah, sure. And then at first it was guitar. We don't play guitar for Carroll Baker. I'm like, and I know she has JK as a guitar player, and JK is a monster player. And I'm like, oh shit, like that's a big one, right? So I'm like, yeah, I'll do it. Yeah. And I know her drummer, in fact, that guy I was telling you about, Ken McCall, did a number of years in Ontario, and he's the guys that Carroll plays. In fact, Ken played with Carroll. So there's this sort of connection to all the players in his band and her band with Ken. So Ed and I, her drummer, was really good friends with Ken. And so when Ken passed away, Ed and I, I did a lot of chatting over the years and just stayed connected online and that sort of thing. And he's just a great guy. And so anyway, yes, I was really excited because I was going to get to work with Ed, and I was going to get to meet Carroll. And like I grew up watching Carroll on TV, and Hee Haw and whatever else that was.
Tommy Hunter.
Right. Yeah, for sure. Tommy Hunter. Yeah, that's the other one. And so I get another call, and it's like, would you be interested in playing with Carroll Baker? And I'm like, yeah, somebody just called me about this like yesterday. Okay, well, I'll get back to you, man. Okay. And then another call. Would you be interested in playing, from 3 different people? And then it was a 4th call, and it was bass. And I'm like, well, who's managing this thing? Like, how does that work? But what was going on was there was a guy that was promoting the show, and he was just looking around for players, and my name got thrown around a few times. And so I don't think they were talking to each other, and they just ended up calling. So it was kind of interesting how it worked out. But anyway, I got JK ended up being able to make the gig, and they needed a bass player. So I ended up filling the gig as a bass player. And it was a very, very cool experience. Like, it was a small venue. We did a run of 5 shows in it, night after night. And Carol's just an absolute gem of a human. She reminds me of one of our aunts on the Azores. Like, she totally would fit that mold. Like, she just,
she probably has the same upbringing, same background. I mean, musically, and,
she's from Port Medway, I think, Nova Scotia.
Yeah. So another, Atlantic East Coaster.
Yeah. And her husband, I didn't know this until they landed, but her husband's a Beaulieu. His name's Jean Beaulieu.
Yeah, is there any relation at all, or just?
Well, I mean, I'm sure somebody's from northern New Brunswick. I think the Edmonton area, and I think there's some connections there. I'm not sure of how the tree works, but yeah, I mean, I suppose we're all related at some point.
Yeah.
But so what I noted about that, and I wanted to share the story. This is the coolest part of that gig for me was I can't remember what the call was. Like, if the show was 7, the call would normally be, let's say, 6, or if the show was 8, the call would be, let's say, 7. Get into the green room, get tuned up, kind of hang out, get it on stage for 8. But it was actually like almost 2 hours before the show. And I thought that was a little peculiar. There's a lot of time to be, and it's a small room, small venue, small green room. It was like, all right. So I get out there, and what was going on was it was kind of her, and I don't know if this was even planned that way. I suppose it would have been, but it was basically, you sing a tune and you sing a tune and you sing a tune. And we just went around the room, and she got some killer backup singers from here that were in the band. and Ed was there. Ed sings really great. And JK was there. He's amazing, you know, artist in his own right and great writer. And so here we were going around the room every single night before the show, and we would sing a tune or two. And it was stuff that we grew up on. So I would, you know, I was like, what am I going to do? Like, I'd do like a Vince Gill tune or, you know, or whatever. It was like a Steve Warner tune. I couldn't even, half the songs I didn't even know all the lyrics to at the time. So it was like, I don't even know what I'm going to be able to do. Like, going back into the days of the Legion, like I'm going, oh, I can do that one. But anyways, it was so cool because it built so much camaraderie among the group. And it taught me a lot about that, you know, just about making your time useful in the green room and not just sitting around eating peanuts and waiting for the thing to start. Like, it was just a really cool vibe. And the second thing about Carroll that knocked me out, that, you know, she was every night, partway through the show, she would stop and recognize the band. And when I say recognize, I don't mean introduce the guys. She would go every single night and talk to her backup singer and say, I remember when you and I first met, and she would tell a story. And I didn't realize it at the time, but when she would meet me and talk to me, she would ask me questions. Where you're from? What do you do? Blah, 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 blah. And she would use it during the show to talk about some of the things that she has extracted from me about, you know, and again, I don't know how deliberate she is at that. If that's something that she's kind of, you know, going, oh, I'm going to ask him these questions. I don't think it's like that. She's just very conversational, but it really blew me away how she would spend sometimes 10, 15, 20 minutes recognizing the band, and whether sometimes they're back to the audience, you know, which, you know, I was going, like, almost, it was making me uncomfortable at first, because I hate the idea of people looking at me, just me, you know. I want to be a part of a unit. I don't like even this whole camera thing wigs me out. But she would turn literally and face me and tell me how she appreciates me every night in a different way. And it got me. It was like I was like getting choked, you know, and they're beautiful things to say, and the whole room got it. Like, it wasn't like she was just off in her own little tangent, like and she's just that kind of person. She's such a genuine soul. And of course, you know, afterward I was doing these videos and we connected quite a bit online, and she's just been so supportive and so sweet. In fact, I don't know, so when COVID hit, I knew I was in trouble. I was starting to play live a bit and wanted to do some solo work. So my plan was to start doing solo stuff. And I thought, I'm never going to be able to do it with this COVID thing. Like, this is going to be shitty. So I got to find a way to market myself. And in my head, I thought, well, I'll do these videos. I'll record myself, because the hardest thing for me to do is go in and sell myself. Because a lot of guys, like Ken was a great example. When I first moved here in 97, I met Ken, and Ken's a piece of work. He was a piece of work. Like, he was a really interesting guy, very vocal, very opinionated. And when I first met him, I'll never forget it. I was like, you know, hey, Ken, you know, I just moved here, and he had a band at the time. And I saw they were reading charts, and I'm like, hey, that would fit me great, you know? So I go up and I play a bunch of instruments, like a lot of instruments. So like he could totally use me. I go up and I'm like, hey, Ken, I'm from New Brunswick. I just moved here. What do you do? I'm like, well, I play guitar, bass. And you know, you can only play one instrument good, you know? That's what he would say.
He hasn't met you.
Okay. Well, no, but in fairness, I understood what he meant though, too, right? Like, what he would be looking at me thinking, me saying I play 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 instruments, he's going, yeah, okay, I'll call you.
Who are you? I'll call you.
And he did that to me twice. But so the hardest thing for me to do was to sell myself. And I thought the best way to do that was for me to create video, because it's so easy today, of me playing everything, right? And that was the impetus of that whole thing with YouTube and creating a YouTube channel, because I really don't like the camera at all. So it was a real stretch for me to get that out there. And what happened was it just kind of kept exploding week after week. And so my commitment was every Thursday night at 9:00, I was uploading something. And then I had planned out all of my songs. I was going to do 10 of them. And midway, Carroll decides to say, you should do a Conway Twitty song. And I'm like, Conway Twitty, what? Like, it's not like it's, you know,
it's fucking Conway Twitty.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, the guy can sing like nuts.
Yeah.
So, and it was I don't know if you know the song, it was Only Make Believe. It's Only Make Believe, which has
I remember that song.
3 or 4 mods in it. Like, it just keeps going up and up and up. And her version, in fairness, the one that she had recorded, because she had recorded it once. And there's a video of her doing it, and Conway walks into the studio. I don't know if you've seen it. It's very cool, and finishes the tune with her. And so I didn't know if she wanted me to do her version or his. So we kind of rallied back and forth, and she goes, you know what, I think you should do the mods. I'm like, great, thanks, Carol. And I did it, but it was great. It was a great, like, again, that's another one of those things where, like, in my mind, the fact that she asked me to do it, I'm like, well, I got to do this. So I spent at least a week researching every version I could find, the Glenn Campbell's one. And I charted it, and I was trying to figure out where I was going to breathe. Like, because, you know, I'm not just out here to, you know, do karaoke busking or nothing like that. Like, I wanted to make a really good job of it and try to cut it. And then of course she was just wonderful. She was super, she was bragging me up like crazy, which was, you know, a lot of people were writing me going, oh my God, Carol like wrote it. My folks were loving it. It was really cool. But she's a total sweetie pie. Yeah. It was one of the best experiences ever.
Because I remember seeing that. I forget what video it was that you had posted that she commented with asking for you to do that song.
Right.
And I was like, oh shit, here it comes.
Yeah.
And then I was waiting for that video to come out.
Yeah. Did you see that one?
Oh, I've seen them all.
Oh, did you? Okay. Yeah. It was a tough one. I mean, it was a tough one. That's all I got to say. It was,
I mean, like I said, it's fucking Conway Twitty. Like,
yeah,
you know, he's a legend. He'd probably be on the Mount Rushmore of country vocalists.
Yeah, he definitely, to me, he was never a country singer. You know what I mean? Yeah. He's in the country genre for sure. He's just not debatable. But I mean, his voice was just, it's kind of like hearing Tom Jones. Like, you open his mouth and it's like there's a cave in there. Like,
yeah, right. So as I mentioned before, like there's two people that I want to bring up. The other one is Katey, which a lot of people would probably know her from America's Got Talent by the name of ANICA.
Yes.
I had met her. I was playing with Terry Whalen Band doing the blues thing, which totally out of my comfort zone. But anyway.
Oh yeah.
Oh man, I'd never played a lick of blues.
You'd probably really.
Yeah, like great and that's not. I mean, the blues is its own thing for a reason. Like, there's a certain.
Oh no question.
It's not easy to be a blues drummer. But I did the best I could. Anyway, so we're at a festival in Nova Scotia, and it was one of those ones. It was further enough, like we had to stay the night kind of thing, and they had a bunch of camper trailers for all the different acts.
Okay.
So I remember it was after we played our set, and I think Garrett Mason was closing the night. So I was watching Garrett Mason.
He's amazing.
Amazing. Like, the whole night, it's all these full bands, right? And then the closer is just Garrett and a guitar.
Nice.
Right. And I mean, amazing. But anyway, so I'm in the camper trailer, me and a couple of the guys. And then all of a sudden there's a knock at the door. I'm like, okay, that's weird. It's like 2 a.m. or whatever. And then the door opens and all I see is this big mop of blonde hair. Katey walks in. Hey guys. And then so she comes in, introduces herself. We start chatting away. And then she's telling me all about like her musical and all these different projects. Like, she's just a firecracker. Like,
oh yeah.
And I know you probably met her well before that and played with her at a couple of blues gigs.
Well, not long. Sorry. Were you finished?
Are you done?
Before I go, because I'll go.
Well, I'm just trying to think. That would have been 2014, 2015 when I met her.
Okay. So I met Katey at there's been a gig here on PEI called Got Blues. I don't know if you've heard of it before, but they have a matinee every Saturday. I think they've run it for about 13 years now, I think. Great bunch of guys, absolutely lovely people. And a real testament to, you know, focus and consistency and just being there. They were doing that thing for 2-3 years, I think, with like nobody in the room every single Saturday. And the format basically is that I think they have a guest first and then they have a jam after. So there's a 45 or an hour with a guest and then a 45 or an hour with locals that'll want to jam. And so they'll have like this big bonanza on the stage of 15 people sometimes, I guess. Maybe that's an exaggeration, but yeah. So at that gig, I've done that with them for a number of years. There was a time there I was almost hitting it every year with them as the guest's guitar player. So like Kenny Pearl was a guy I played with here. He's a great guy, kind of this Joe Cockerish sort of Delbert McClinton style, R&B powder blues sort of fella, great guy too. And I was sitting in with him quite often. And I think for that particular gig, the guitar player was out and I had to sub for him. So they called me to sub and Katey was the guest that day. Okay. And that's all on YouTube. That first time, like she painted black, there's a bunch of stuff she did by McGee. And it was just fire. Like the room was hot. Like right as
Mhm.
soon as we started, it was like, oh boy, like this is gonna be good.
As soon as she
And there
opens her
was,
mouth, it's just,
yeah, and you know, of course, I know I'm probably being selfish because I'm thinking about my own thing, but there was a real great, in my mind anyway, there's a great chemistry that happened between us. And I was
yep,
like, you know, do you have a band? Like I didn't even know who she was, but that
yeah,
much. Like I you know, I kind of crept her a bit afterward, and we stayed in touch and we talked a little bit about some stuff. Like I try to stay in touch with people that I connect with, you know, online and that sort of thing, just try to stay close and to see what she was at. And then you know, nothing really materialized. I know that, you know, she had some things on the go. She has a day gig and all that sort of stuff too, but we just kind of just stayed in touch. And then recently this whole American Idol thing, I was like, you know, you go get them, you know,
yeah. Oh,
because
AGT,
that
America's
was
Got Talent. Yeah.
unbelievable. What did I say?
You said Idol, but it was Got Talent.
Oh, right. Yeah,
But
yeah. Okay.
they're all the same. No.
Yeah. Okay. My bad.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it was amazing. The audition was so cool. And I knew, like, I mean, if you know her, if anybody who hasn't seen her, just go check anything out by her, because she's, like you say, she opens her mouth and it's incredible. And so she blew the roof off the place, which, you know, I
I
totally
knew she would.
expected it. Yeah.
Yep.
And so she was, she had a gig coming up in New Brunswick, and she was recruiting a band. And so I got on that list and we connected, and that was a great show. We had a lot of fun. And there's a few things that I think of. COVID's just blowing everything sideways, but there's some stuff that she's got in the works right now that I think are, if they manifest in the next 6 months, they're going to be pretty wild. So I'm really excited about that, because that's, you know, she's wonderful.
Yeah, I would
Everywhere.
anticipate that from the experience of being on America's Got Talent, that and a lot of people were very upset that she had the exit when she did, myself included, because I think she could have gone all the way, or should have gone all the way. Um,
Those
with
shows
that,
are hard. I mean,
yeah, I mean, but with
she had
that,
some really great stories about that, actually, about what it
yeah,
was like on the inside. So
yeah,
some really cool things.
and yeah, and just she's so appreciative and doesn't take it for granted. I mean, she's been in the business. She's seen and done it all. Like, you know, she's
Oh
been
yeah.
around, so she knows how it all works. But I think from that, and I might be speaking out of turn. Maybe this is stuff that you know about that I don't know about, or I'm just kind of speculating that she'd likely be doing tours across the U.S.
Yeah, I don't know what I'm allowed to say and not allowed to say, so I'll probably just hold my tongue. But there's some stuff that she's cooking up down there,
Yeah.
that there's some management involved and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And she's got it. It's public knowledge that she got on with a management company, so I'm not scared to say anything about that. And the people that she's, you know, being managed aside by, like the bands that these people manage, are big like this. So
Mhm.
and good on her. Like, I mean,
Yeah, absolutely.
and she's got some prospects there, and there's a couple of other things that she was working. We were hoping to do a little bit of a tour in December, that would lead into New Year's. She had some stuff down on stateside, going up the Eastern Seaboard, which would have been really cool, but that of course didn't happen.
But I mean, that's just a logical, you know, progression of going from that show to having that amount of support, you know, to just take it on the road. Like, and she's such a performer that, I mean,
Oh,
she can't not do it, right? I mean, but
you
here's the
should
thing
see
with
what she's
her.
like on stage, man. It's
I know.
crazy.
Yeah, I
It's
got to
really
watch her. I
wild.
mean, I've seen her a couple of times when she was doing with the Instigators, her and
Oh, so when you did that blues thing, you played with her, you said?
I didn't play with her.
Oh,
Like,
okay.
she had her band, her and
Right. This is sort of
the
a multi-band.
Instigators, and I was with Terry Whalen.
Right.
But
Okay.
yeah, so we played the same day kind of thing. So I got to see her with a full band, and I've gotten to see her with just her and playing the acoustic with Teresa Malafont
Right.
playing.
Yeah.
So they were a duo for a while. Like,
Right.
so I've seen them
Yes.
do their
I've seen
acoustic
some of that
shows
stuff.
and their full band shows. So,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
their full band shows are killer players too.
I
So,
bet.
oh
I
yeah,
bet.
yeah. So as you mentioned, like since the pandemic, you've done a lot of the online stuff and working on original material and stuff like that. I assume that you're still working on writing.
I'm always writing.
Yeah.
To me, writing is one of those, I do it. I'm doing it right now. I used to tell my, it's terrible, but I have conversations and there's a CD player going in my head of tunes. Like, it just never ends. It's been that way since I was a kid. I don't fight it anymore. The issue for me is to get it recorded. So, you can imagine how daunting it would be. And the problem with me is when I write, I don't write like an acoustic demo. I write produced. So in my head, I have the drums done, and what changed for me was interesting. The last probably 5 or 6 years, I was sort of discovered how much I was writing for a number of years. I was writing to say, like, write a song for Keith Urban, let's say, where I was like focusing on stylistically, let's just put, this is going to be a country song, or this is going to be a rock song, or that's going to be a funk song. And now when I write, it's a little hard to explain, but I play the instruments in my head as though I'm in the session, and it changed everything for me. It changed how my approach to everything, because now it's loose, now it's fluid, and it's no longer in a box. So my bass parts are the way I would play the bass parts, not a country bass part.
Right.
It's a Roland bass part.
So it's your voice.
And it's my voice on everything. So what happens on the other side of that, when you think about that, some of its parts thing, it comes out the other end way, way different than I would even imagine it, because it's, I told this to Dad, like, when I was playing and recording Dad last year, that, Dad drives a room. They call him Driver Francis for a reason. He's got the feet going and the rhythm on the right hand and the harmonica or whatever. It just got this force. And so I said, can you imagine, Dad, if you took you and multiplied you into 4? So I want you to play the mandolin, the guitar, the fiddle, all on one track. And he was trying to understand how that worked. And, for a guy that was 80, it's probably a lot to take. But I was trying to explain to him, can you imagine the power if you could treat each track the way that you would treat the one that you did when you're in the middle of the kitchen back in 1982. Yeah. And so same as like that for me, now that I'm writing the way that I'm writing, there's this whole other thing that's happening on the other side of that. And I love it so much because it's way easier for me to produce, because it's just me. Right. Yeah. And then tie that with the, I don't care anymore. And that's kind of what I'm producing these days. And it's, and I like it. It's creating this. And so now I'm trying to just sort of package it into something so that it makes sense, and again, the idea of releasing something today is just so far for me. And not to say that I'm never going to release it. It's tough for me. I look at music like a business model. So, I mean, I don't like spending all these hours and all this time to sell something for 0.0032 cents. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I get it.
So, and then I'm not saying I'm going to ask $50 for my CD, but I mean, I'm trying to make sense of the whole thing still. It's really tough for me to kind of get my head around. I'm old.
No, I wish more people would think of it in that way. I think the fact that people think of it in that, the singles and the way that music is released now is to their own detriment. There's one thing about following the marketing trend, but then there's also, just doing it the way they used to do it, because that's when music had value. Not to say that it doesn't have value now, but it's, you don't make money the way you used to. Like, bands have to tour until look at the Rolling Stones are still going, because that's the only way they can make money. Record sales and the record companies and all that stuff. Those are days long gone, but they don't have to stay.
They got a mansion to pay rent on.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. You got 5 mansions and 6 cars.
No, it's no different. It's just on a larger level. That's all. But I mean, it is the same thing. And you can't, I don't know, that whole thing. I really don't know what to think of the business side of things anymore. And it's not to say I lost hope. It's just I'm really in a weird spot with it. I don't know what to perceive of the value of it. And, the whole melt in your mouth songs and singles, and you listen to what the Grammys was producing and the top songs, and it's just like, what? Like, not that was ever a bar to be measured by for great songs, but there was a time when there was at least some tangible musicianship happening and that sort of thing, and the whole pitch correct stuff and all that kind of thing. It's just, I feel so old when I go on about that stuff, because it's like, oh man.
But it's true. And like, I don't know if you follow Rick Beato on YouTube. Oh yeah. But he recently did his review of the songs that were nominated for Song of the Year. Right. And like 3 of the songs, he was like, these 3 are good songs, and they're actually played by musicians. The rest of the songs were, 20 songwriters. It doesn't have any like real drums. They just don't make songs the way they used to.
there's always a market for that. I think there's always going to be a market for that stuff, and that's okay as long as you got buyers. There's going to be a market for it. But what I find now, like, there's not to say there's, as far as the content is concerned, I think that there's more great music out there than there ever was. Like, you just got to know how to turn stones. Like, you got to look in places that, because nobody shows it to you anymore. You're not getting the top 20 countdown every weekend to show you and assimilate what it is that is good music and bad music. You got to dig. But I mean, you look at guys like, like the Tommy Emmanuels of the world, and all of that whole pocket of players there. There's a ton of those kinds of guys that are just insane. And then there's kids today that are just unbelievable. And, all these social media dudes that are out there and crushing it. And so there's lots of really great music being done. And that's why I have hope, because like I said, the idea of doing something and tied with the idea that I don't care, at least just puts it out there and gets it done and gets it out for me. So I have, I'm going to be doing something. It has to make sense for me. And I want to be able to put, ideally, I would love to be able to put a really hot band together and support it for a little bit and have that little bit of fun, because that's what it's all about, getting on stage and getting greasy and just, giving her.
Yeah. And I mean, this would be a band that you would be in the front and center.
Yeah. And that's different for me
that's
too.
That's a whole other, because you've been...
I never, the last 2 years have been such a learning curve for me. And it's been so cool, because I never, ever would have thought I would be a frontman singer. It's always been a little bit of a fascination, but singing for your supper kind of does something to your confidence where, you just got no choice. It's like that sink or swim thing. And just going out in pubs and meeting people and just doing it by myself. And, I'm never late. I don't have to worry about any drama. It's it's gotten so easy for me and so comfortable. And during the week, I'll learn, a handful of songs, and I look forward to pulling them out on the list, because I'm trying to keep it fresh. But I've been doing that for 2 years now. I've got 660 some songs in my tablet right now. Yeah. And it's bananas. I mean, some of those are set lists from bands that I had to pick up over the last couple of years, like Trin's set list or whatever. Yeah. And because I try to get around and work with as many people as I can, because that's what you got to do. But yeah, so it's been a real awesome sort of growth phase for me as a singer, which I never ever thought I'd ever be able to do. But now I feel super. But in fact, I'm going live tomorrow night, hopefully. Hey, first time.
At this point, it would have already happened.
Right, that's right.
By the time this comes out, it'll have already happened. Yeah. So I hope you had a good turnout. Is it doing
it right at the house here?
What's that?
I'm doing it right at the house.
Yeah,
going right
cool.
through my laptop. Yeah.
There's a few cousins that played guitar or bass or whatever, but you were always the guy that played everything. Like drums, bass, guitar, and singing. I remember at our grandparents' anniversary, you guys played More Than Words by Extreme, and that just...
Me and Tom.
You and Tommy, and nobody in the family was expecting it, right?
Oh, is that right? That's kind of cool.
Well, I mean, I certainly wasn't. And I know there was a lot of other people, like aunts and uncles, that, because they're busy doing their thing and they're not really, I mean, they're,
I don't think we did either. It certainly wasn't planned.
And then you guys got up, just the guitar and the two guys singing, and then the whole room just kind of, the air just kind of left the room. Everybody was just kind of zoned in on what you guys were doing.
That was a really cool night, actually.
It was a really awesome experience. And that was the first time that, I mean, I know you guys were playing songs and being around the family, but that there was kind of a moment that I watched that and I was like, holy shit.
Is that on video? Does somebody have that on video?
I don't know. I'm sure there's a VHS cassette.
Are you saying somewhere. You're saying there you were in
I'm saying there in the moment. Right, like I remember being there in that moment, and I would have been 11 or 12, something like that. Right. I just remember watching it in person and just thinking, oh my God, like these guys are nailing it and I know them. Like it was kind of one of those, you guys weren't like rock stars, but it kind of felt like that.
Right. That's
and
funny.
and I mean, people, I mean, I'm mentioning it now, but people still talk about that moment.
That was a great night. I remember doing Seven Bridges Road too with the Darashes and that group, and it was amazing. Yeah. It sounded great. It was like this is crazy. Yeah, we should be doing that more. Like
I agree.
It's crazy.
Yeah. So I mean, everybody's just all over the place now. So
yeah.
And then COVID, but like in seeing you, because you jumped from instrument to instrument, and I remember my brother Dan, your best friend. He was the reason why I started playing drums, as a
Right.
younger brother. Like they always
Right.
fascinated me, but then actually seeing my brother do it kind of gave me that push to you want to be like your older brother kind of thing.
Sure. Oh yeah, I can
Um,
relate.
and because it's funny, like you mentioned like earlier about seeing your brother play and him getting you to play along kind of thing. And I remember his white Yamaha Power V kit.
Yep.
He didn't want to sell them to me when he was moving away. He wanted me to read all these self-help books because he was big into like he was big into like the Dale Carnegies.
What a
and
price for a kit. Oh
yeah, right.
man.
And like I was
Some Dale
14,
Carnegie.
15. I didn't want to
That's
read
funny.
that shit, but he had like a whole list of books that he wanted me to read. And I was just like, yeah. So he's like, every week he'd check in. It's like, how much reading did you get done? I'm like, oh, I got a chapter done. Fuck, no, I didn't. But then he moved and he ended up selling you that drum kit, or I don't know how you ended up getting that drum kit,
Yeah.
but you had it for a number of years.
Yep. I
Teaching
spent a lot of hours on
lessons.
that. I taught, and that Lobster Carnival gig, I was playing drums on that gig.
Yeah.
That's the one on YouTube. I'll have to share that one with you later. It's funny to watch.
Okay.
I'm playing that kit with Trin Bradshaw, and she's like 12.
So, but playing the drum, like, because as good a guitar and drummer, like a bass player, like you said, like you're equally proficient on the drums.
I've always felt that way. Yeah. I just haven't had a kit as available as I had guitars and basses, but
yeah, I mean, obviously it's a little harder.
Crazy passion for drums. I mean, I love drums. I love.
So who were the guys, like because you had the Eddies and the Getty and stuff like that, like as far as drums go?
Drums? Oh yeah. Well, for me, I mean, Neil was too far of a stretch, and Lucas had that thing all sewn up. So I was not interested in lifting Neil licks, but Alex Van Halen really floated my boat at that time because I was such a big Van Halen fan. So I was trying to pick up like the Hoffer Dieter stuff and like any licks that were really cool. Like Alex is really interesting. He was like the Bonham and Neil Peart kind of in the middle. That's why I always perceived him to be.
Yep.
And then, I got into, because I was into songs and tunes and learning stuff, I got really into guys like Kenny Aronoff, and those guys were like just all over every record and just pocket guys. And I love that they could just sit and play a pocket all day long. And when you get a really well-placed fiddle, and then of course, learning, I was in a band in grade 12, playing drums in clubs back in those times with Rob and a bunch of them. Mm-hmm. And I had a Rogers kit at the time, concert toms, Sabian B8s. So it sounded great.
Oh, yeah. I bet.
Oh man. But that at that time, I was really discovering a lot of the country stuff. So like the Eddie Bears guys, like, those guys are just on every record. And,
mm-hmm.
Bears, what I thought was so cool with him was like, never mind the groove pig he was, but when he would do a fill, I just felt like the toms were just so well placed. Like everything was just so perfect. And so that was kind of stuff that floated my boat, really like laying into a really simple, well placed, or, the Steve Ferroni stuff from Tom Petty, where it's just
very articulate. Like,
well, when they go for the toms, they mean business, but it's like the caveman style drumming where it's just, there's nothing really that fancy in the fingers going on. It's straight down and
boom,
nice and simple. And I love that whole thing, and I remember reading an article on Kenny Aronoff back in the day. I can't remember when that article came out, and your brother and I, we chewed on that one for a while, but he was talking about these exercises he would do where he'd play behind the beat, on the beat, and ahead of the beat. And we're like, what? You can do that? Like, and I think we knew it was a thing, but we never really realized that somebody would actually exercise that, and then we thought, wow, that's pretty wild. And, but, because clicks were becoming a thing at that time, and, playing to a click was a big deal. So I practiced a lot with the click. When I got that kit, I was teaching. So at that point I thought, well, if I'm teaching, I have to commit. So I was really, at that time, I devoured that New Breed book by Gary Chester. That's such a big, I think I got to page 5.
I'm still on the cover. So,
well, that book, you could spend months just on the first 2 pages, because it's a compounding exercise. Like the first exercise, you go through this whole thing, and then you just change limbs. So you read one limb and you play the key with 3 other limbs while you read this limb. And then you go back to exercise 1 and you do the same exercise, except you just change the limb. So now you're reading the hi-hat hand and you play the key with the other 3 limbs. But I picked that up from Weckl. So Weckl was a big one.
Yeah.
I forgot about that one, but that Back to Basics video was insane.
Dan gave me, like, when I was like, I want to learn how to play drums, he gave me the VHS and said, watch that a couple times and then talk to me.
Yeah. Well, yeah, he was trying to humble you probably, but to see that kind of, fluidity and the way he filled and how relaxed he looked and all that sort of stuff. I
Yeah.
love that. I love he could smack him when he wanted to. Like, I like hard hitters.
Mhm.
But
I actually have that on DVD.
Guys. Do you really?
I found it and picked it up on DVD.
Video. There's the whole, picked up the whole on how to stick and things, finger control stuff. Like, I got all that from that. And that could just sort of set me off. And the Gary Chester book came out of that video because he referred to Gary Chester in that book and the whole,
a few times
symmetrically divide the kit. And,
yeah,
that was a really cool thing. And so I was teaching out of that book as sort of an advanced. So my advanced drummers would get to that point. And for reading it, it's unbelievable. Like, so my drum reading went right through the roof at that point. I mean, I'm not really as good as I was then, but, and I remember I was playing with Pearl at the time. So I was doing this Powder Blues gig playing drums, and these are gigs, like the Powder Blues stuff, as you said, like I was practicing all this great articulate doubles and, all my rudiments, and I was getting good, man. I was starting to lock shit in, and I was going, oh, this is lovely. Like, I'm starting to get the vibe of it, I had a little bit of tendonitis once in a while. I'd be careful because I was overdoing it a bit. I'd get to a gig and I'd go to play with Ken. And I'd try to do the whole thing, and I'm playing like with Weckel's signature sticks, and I've got the Weckel ride with the Weckel hats. And what that was before is there actually weren't signature series cymbals at the time. Those were there was the K's, but there were Zildjian K's. Yeah. K's had hats, I think. And the big dark ride, which got stolen, by the way.
Oh, the dark ride got stolen. I love that ride. That bell was amazing.
That whole cymbal pack I loaned to a buddy, and he did a club gig in town. And as he was loading, somebody walked off with the cymbal pack. All my cymbals were gone. There's probably there's a lot of brass there. It was really good, but I ended up getting new stuff out of it because he was insured. So that worked out. But in any case, so here I am at this gig, and I'm doing the whole, finger control stuff. And Ken's one of these guys that when you're not cutting the mustard, he'd turn around and he'll tell you, hit. And you just can't do that stuff in that kind of a band, So it's like turn her down to the butt ends and just crack her. And that was where we needed to be. And then I remember at the end of those gigs, like I'd do 4 sets, and you're 1, 2 in the morning, and you're smelling like an ashtray. But I wanted to fall asleep. Like, I was so exhausted, sore, like just completely worn out, And you got to tear down. That's when I hated being a drummer. You got to tear down at 2 in. The guys throwing the guitars in their case and up to their car, and you're packing up all this shit. It's like, what am I doing?
Thanks for the help, guys. No, they never offer to carry nothing either.
200-pound bag of hardware. What the hell?
Especially the hardware back then, because that shit was fucking heavy.
Jesus.
It's a little better now, but
yeah, the new Yamaha stuff is cool.
Yeah, the Crosstown.
Yeah.
I got to get my hands. I have a couple of. I'm really into like the vintage style stuff and vintage sounds. Like right now, I'm because of the Yamaha influence from, my brother and that back to basics, Weckel and seeing guys like Gad and, so I'm a Yamaha guy. I've been ever since then. So I've got a Yamaha kit, and, but I've got all the resonant heads taken out. So I'm doing just the kind of the single tom thing. Nice. And I've got a couple of flat bass stands, like going like with the old kind of classic kind of vibe to it. So that stuff's a little lighter, but
yeah, you can put them inside each other.
Yeah.
We used to travel, Lucas, when I was in the band with Lucas, we would travel, that whole band was in 2 Chevettes. And one of the biggest reasons why we could do it was because we put the kick drum and the floor tom would go into that, and then the other time would go into that, and the other time would go into that, and then the snare would sit on top. And it was this nice little kind of pile of stuff. Yeah. And we just tuck it right into the back of the seat there, and off you go. Yeah.
Like right now,
we used to close the hatchback, and we had to move shit to be just right, because the window would get busted out if we didn't. I remember we had a fog lamp. Those fog lamps that you get from like Home Hardware. We made these plywood, 1x1 plywood pieces, and we mounted them onto that. That was our lights. And we would put that in backwards so that the flat end was out, and we'd put the light side in, and it was totally flat to the window. Like we could just go click, and it was.
Yeah, you couldn't just slam it. You had to like push it shut.
You got 2 Chevettes, totally styling.
Yeah. Like for the kit I'm using now, I converted. Well, I didn't convert. I just put I've got 2 floor toms. I got a 14 and a 16. So I put the 14 up on a snare mount as my rack tom.
Okay, cool.
And then I got the
Nice.
16 as the floor tom. So I got
Nice.
two floor toms basically as
Beauty.
my,
Yeah.
yeah. So
Biggins.
kind of doing the the big Steve
Yeah.
Smith fills,
Very, yeah. Beauty.
Yeah. Um, so do you have anything as a kit now? Like, are you just doing electronic
No,
or programs?
no, well, yeah. So normally my writing process is that I have like, I actually developed pretty substantial finger drumming technique. I really have, like, I can cut it pretty good just with finger pads. And so that gets the job done for demoing. And then once I go to cut stuff, I've got a few buddies that I can use drum rooms, proper mic stuff and that. So
Okay.
that's the plan. Is
And would you play them yourself or hire them
Oh
to
yeah,
do
yeah.
it? Yeah.
Oh no, I want to give it a go. I mean, there's some stuff I think that I'll get in trouble in, and I'll have to probably pass it off. But I really want to play, at least for the first block of tunes that I want to put out there. I really am adamant that I want to do all of it, and
Mhm.
only because I wrote them that way. And
Yeah.
I want to see what it comes out like. It's that the process is what I love. I love the process. It's not about me playing all the stuff and saying, hey, look at me. I really love recording. Like, there's so many variables in those mixes that you can take stuff and move it around, and look at that stuff just drives me insane in a good
Yeah.
way. Like, I totally love it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I do, there's some questions that I usually ask at the end of each session. I call them the crash questions. The first question I always ask everybody, it's kind of off topic, but do you prefer cake or pie?
Oh God, cake all day long.
Really?
Oh yeah,
I'm a pie guy. I don't know.
I believe it.
Yeah. What
I can see why. I mean, I would never turn a pie down, but you put the two in front of me, I'd go for the cake.
Yeah. Yeah. What's the cake?
Chocolate all the way, always. I'm a
Yeah.
chocoholic. Yeah.
Chocolate cake. Nice. What is I hate to stay on I'm kind of a foodie, so a lot of the questions I, ask her about food. What's
I
something
like
that you
food.
used to eat when you were a kid that you still eat today?
That's a good one, man. You know what? We had this conversation not that long ago, my girlfriend and I, and we were talking about molasses. We have molasses in the house. That's something that, bread, butter, and molasses.
Yeah.
We used to mix that in shortening actually for some, when we were we were at a peanut butter kind of thing.
Yeah.
But that or peanut butter. I've been a peanut butter guy forever, and
I have a peanut butter problem.
I understand that.
No, yeah.
Now,
Like
chocolate and peanut butter is the best thing ever. That's when
Yeah.
Reese's Pieces or whatever the hell they came out. That was like
Yeah.
the best thing.
But they're so much smaller now. Like,
No, the cups.
yeah,
Screw the big
cups.
sizes and the small sizes. The cups are what you want. That's the best proportion. And
Yeah.
oh yeah.
Yeah, the ratio's there for sure. So being that you're a multi-instrumentalist, and then we were just talking about the drums. If you're laying into a groove, like if you're like in that pocket, are you more of a ride or a hi-hat guy?
Definitely hi-hat.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
Like we're talking like closed or sloshy, like what's
No, I like it nice and tight, and I like playing the top really, really soft. I like a big meat and potatoes, and I really like to be light on the hands because I just think that it lends itself well. I love drummers and favor drummers, at least that I work with. When I hear drummers that mix themselves, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
There's some guys that are they're so heavy on the top, and it's like, ugh, and then never mind that the voices are wrong. You know what I mean? They get these like those explosion crashes that just rip your head off.
Mhm.
I like darker cymbals. I like light touch on the top. A context, of course, is important too. You're not
Yeah.
going to be doing that if you're playing, punk or rock, the stuff that that you like or whatever. Like that's just not going to fit. But for the most of the stuff that I do and like, and that's kind of how but hi-hat all day long.
Hi-hat all day long. Yeah.
You
Yeah.
can do kicks, hat, and snare. Show up at a gig, and you're good to go.
Yeah. 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 There's that video on Instagram. That guy on stage, he's literally just got the kick hat and hi-hat.
Nate Smith.
Yeah. Like, dude,
The guy is an animal.
just that's all he's got. The kick, snare,
You
and
see
a
the one
hi-hat.
where he dropped a stick and he did the rest of his solo with one hand. Amazing.
It's just ridiculous. Like I could never even. Yeah, I can't even touch that.
There's just so many of those guys now. It's amazing. Nate's a monster.
So, like, and as we've alluded, you play just about everything under the sun. Is there an instrument that got away from you, or that you just kind of avoided?
There's two instruments I've always wanted to capture, like to, and I still struggle with them. And my big thing these days is piano. I love piano. It's my favorite thing. I can, you can put me on the floor with a piano and in tears. Like, it really does reach me in every way, because I find it's a combination of everything. It's rhythm, it's melody, it's got the chords, it's just
Percussive.
everything. It's everything. And it really gets to me. Cello is another one that I find, I had a friend describe it once as, it's as if you peel your rib cage open and you're playing your ribs. Like, it gets me right in there,
Yeah.
But violin is the one. Like, fiddle is something that and not fiddle tunes. Like, I like the sound of a really beautifully played classical style fiddle. Like, when it comes to classical, I tend to lean towards the slower stuff, like the really slow
the
type things. You like
somber
Moonlight Sonata kind of things. Like, I love that stuff. It's really, really pretty. Actually, I remembered when we were kids, you guys had that Clavinova, and there's a couple of demos of your piano. I'm still trying to find out what that tune was. There was one I was trying to learn, and I still know it sort of half hours, but I wanted to find it so I could pick it up. But I have no idea what it was called. It was just one of the demos that were in the piano.
Oh God, I remember that. God, my dad, hours and hours playing that thing. And he always told me, he's like, you're going to get to an age where you're going to regret not learning how to play this.
Yeah.
Motherfucker was right.
It's a beautiful, beautiful instrument. And so those are the two between cello. I think cello, I just like hearing it. I don't know that I'd ever want to play it, but cello and violin were two things that always eluded me. Violin's a very moody instrument, very difficult, super hard to play.
Temperamental. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I've done a few shows and runs with the violin, and enough to know that I don't think I want to be playing shows with a violin in my hands. I play fiddle, but I do like the tunes thing, right? And that's a whole different animal than the Nashville style playing. And I've done a run of shows with Marcelo where I had a fiddle and I worked hard on the parts, and I mean, I liked it. It was good, but at the time I was playing a bunch of instruments in that band, and it was, I was spending a half hour to tune, and every gig was $50 in strings.
Yeah. See, for me, I don't think I've ever told anyone this. I always wanted to learn how to play the lap steel. Oh,
really? That's cool.
Yeah. Like I can't play. I mean, I can strum a few chords on the guitar, and then I can, I know a couple of chords on the piano kind of thing. Like not enough to say that I could play it, but there's just something about the lap steel, man. Like,
yeah. Are you into like Larkin Poe?
Oh yeah. So great, good.
Eh?
They're so good.
Yeah, Robert Randolph too is another cat. Sean Verreau from Weymouth Mason, he's been in the lap steel for the last, gosh, I don't know how long. He's doing like 3 slides on his hand now. Check that out. That's crazy. Yeah. It's crazy what he's doing with it. Yeah.
Yeah. There's a buddy of ours out of Fredericton, plays with the band Kill Chicago. His name's Dylan Anthony. Okay. In that band, he bounces from the lap steel and the keys and the guitar. Like, he's kind of like the multi guy in that band. And he was really good friends with James McClafferty, who recorded and played bass with us on our album. Nice. So they went to engineering school together, so they were really tight. So when we were recording our album, there was a couple of songs where he brought him in and he played the steel and the keys on, which I just thought was amazing. Yeah, there's a couple of tunes on ours that it just adds so much to it.
No question.
Yeah, I mean, and we're a punk band, so figure that out.
Oh man, there's nothing wrong with that.
Played some lap steel in a punk song.
Like that. So get a fiddle, put it through a Marshall.
Yeah, exactly. put a distortion pedal, away you go.
Absolutely.
Is there a particular item, like a piece of gear that you couldn't see yourself without now?
Yeah, I mean, I probably everything, because I've really been particular about what I own right now. Like, my guitars back here, like I got these guys, like my Telly is my right hand, and the Stratus, I have a Telly, a Strat, and like a Paul version. This is a good end over here. Mm-hmm. Actually, this guitar, I got a really cool thing going on with that. It's got a bass pickup in it. So it drops the low E and A and D strings down an octave and puts it.
Monkey Junk does that.
Yeah. So it's like 2 guitars in one.
Yeah. Ever hear Monkey Junk?
Heard the name. I didn't.
Yeah, they're a blues band based out of Ontario. It's the drums and 2 guitar players, but one of the guitar players, he has that set up in his Telly.
Yeah.
And
so
my God.
I got that from Billy Gibbons. Has a band that he's working around in Texas, and it's the same deal. It's Billy and this guitar player and a drummer.
Matt Sorum.
Bass player.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And they got that going on. So that's where I picked it up, and I bought one. It's out of LA. I think they're called Little Thunder or something like that.
Something like that.
Anyway, So I got a duo I've been working on for a long time with my buddy, and we want to do the whole rock thing. So I want it to be greasy, gritty, and full on, and sound like three guys, but be two.
Yeah.
And we have a lot of fun with that. But that again was supposed to launch before the big C word happened. That's another thing that I don't think I could live without now. It's becoming my right arm.
So do you play that open tuned, or is that just regular?
Yeah. I've worked on it a lot too, right? Like I started, the idea with it was that I wanted to be able to do two instruments. I like the idea of spinning a bunch of plates and singing at the same time. Mm-hmm. And part of it is economics. Like it's the idea that I can serve 2-3 people at the same time. And the other is that, it's just kind of cool. I think it'd be kind of like watch the freak kind of thing. You know what I mean? Like, look at this guy, he's playing through. I do like Billie Jean. So I play like the keyboard part and the bass line, and I sing it at the same time. And it sounds kind of nuts because when you break that stuff down and work it out, and then you start performing it, it gets to that point where you're not thinking anymore. But there's some times where you can fall off the track, and it's like it's hard to get back on because there's 3 things that you're doing you got to get back onto.
Yeah.
But it's really cool to get it going. And once you get it going, it's kind of like you're going like, wow, that's a lot of sound coming out of there, because there's like the bass happening, and there's like, and I've got my, I run the guitar just like a guitar, so it runs through a pedal board. I've got all kinds of junk on that if I want it, like delays and whatever. And I run a wet dry rig, so it's a nice big sound, and then I got the bass running through a big bass rig, so it's boomy and tubby, and Adam hits like a rock drummer should, man. So it sounds nasty. Like it's got some really great grit to it. And I can't wait to get out there with it, because it's again, one of those things I don't think we're going to work more than a few times a year, but it's just one of those sort of silos, like I said, where I can go into and live there for a little bit once in a while,
Yeah.
Super fun.
That's awesome. Well, hopefully
that's a cool piece that I probably couldn't live without, for sure.
Yeah. Cool.
Well, I've got actually, you know what? I've got 2 guitars I can't live without. One is my dad's Yamaha SG45 or SG85 that he gave me when I was 12. It's basically a Les Paul, but it was the highest end Yamaha Les Paul, and it's a 72. 3 guitars actually. There's a Gretsch 62 Gretsch that was my grandmother's that my brother owns, and I happen to have it. Getting repaired, actually. It's here, getting some service done by a dude here. And then I have a guitar that was given to me by a guy I graduated with named Chris Galley, and he sent me this guitar, which is a Warmoth guitar. It's sort of a sort of a custom built guitar, and it's one of these 80s rockers,
Yeah.
And I wish I could use it more, because I just don't use it as much as I'd like to, because I don't have the kind of work that would lend itself. It's like a Ferrari, you don't take that car around town where there's dirty roads and all that sort of stuff, because that's kind of where I'm working right now. And that's the kind of it's kind of guitar that goes fast. It's great to do the Eddie thing and stuff with. So, but and that's another thing. I want to get an 80s project cooking around here so I can use that thing, because that's something that that's a part of me that exists in another silo that I could live in for a few things, just for a project, because it's fun to do that stuff. And there's a lot of cats around here. There's really great players around here. Yeah,
that's the thing. Like in Prince Edward Island, like it's very similar to New Brunswick, where there's a lot of really great players, like per capita. I think the Atlantic provinces, but more particularly New Brunswick and PEI, because we don't get near the amount of attention as like Halifax and Nova Scotia does. But like
there's some cats in Halifax, I'll tell you.
But I think per capita, the talent is just amazing in these 2 provinces. Like
you don't see it until you go away. Like I remember when I was a kid and we toured for the first time, and you see these bands out there that are working and touring, and you're like, there's bands at the bar downtown that would be better than these guys. Yeah. Well, but that's and they're like, oh yeah, you're from the Maritimes though, and you realize that there's a thing about that, right? So but it's like we said earlier, it's like with those kitchen parties, like taken for granted, like our uncles could play circles around those guys in those big cities, like Yeah, like that, and that's exactly right. I mean, I think that I remember having a conversation with a guy just not that long ago, and he said, he asked me straight up. He's like, what was it like? What was it like to be around all that music, because he just doesn't know, and I can't imagine my life not having that in my history. Like it's in the DNA. It's just there, literally in the DNA. It's hopeless. Like I say it all the time. It's hopeless. Like you could not play. Like, so that's kind of, we do take it for granted. I think 100%. Yeah. that culture just doesn't exist in certain pockets of the country. So that's where we have that blessing, right? And
Yeah.
it's all in the Maritimes. It's everywhere. Newfoundland, same thing. Different trip in Newfoundland, but there's some crazy parties and players in Newfoundland too.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Amazing. Magdalen Islands. Holy shit. Like, forget about it. Have you heard any guys from there?
Not
Do
that I can.
yourself a
Not.
favor. Do yourself a favor, man, and check that out, because there's a different curve going on there for sure too.
Yeah.
They got some stuff going on. Yeah.
I'll have to check that out for sure.
Dad had a party tape from somewhere. Do you remember Moose?
Oh, of course I remember Moose.
Yeah. So Moose.
Andre Iba.
He was trucker, and he trucked over there and he's always meeting players because he liked to play mandolin and fiddle tunes and stuff. And he came home with a tape of a party that he had there. And I wore that shit out because I just never heard anything like it. There's a certain fire under the hood that you just can't explain. And they've got a whole different gear. Really cool.
Yeah. No, yeah, of course I remember Moose. I think he's the guy that named me the Kawasaki Kid because I had that.
How he was.
That little tricycle.
Yeah.
The little green Kawasaki trike. Yeah.
Oh my God. That's funny. That's great.
I'm sure there's a picture of me on that thing somewhere. I know there's pictures of me like in the backyard on your dad's motorcycles too.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I was trying to find that one of you in the sink for this particular thing, but I couldn't acquire it in time.
But yeah, you know what? I've taken up like over 2 hours of your time tonight.
Has it been
totally,
yeah,
I completely appreciate that you agreed to come on here.
Yeah, no, it's happy to do it.
You know, family is as widespread as we can be. It's still family, and like you talk about those days, and it just brings you right back to that moment, and the feelings are all there.
Yeah, 100%. Oh, I totally get you. And great thing that you're doing. I love it.
Thanks, man.
Salut.
As always, just such a joy getting to sit and have a conversation with yet another amazing, talented person. In this case, it happened to be my cousin, Roland, and it had been a long time since we were able to have this kind of a sit down conversation, just back and forth, chatting and reminiscing and just all good feelings. So thank you so much, Roland, for agreeing to be on the podcast. And I look forward to the day where we can sit down and have a drink and just shoot the shit. So thanks again. That's going to be it for this week's episode. More guests on the way. Having such a great time getting to know the amazing, talented people that we have in Atlantic Canada. I mean, it's just incredible the level of musicianship and artistry that we have. And I'm very grateful for anyone that agrees to be on the podcast and have these conversations. So to previous guests and all future guests, thank you so much. It's an honor, and I don't take that lightly. That'll be it for this week. As always, take care of yourselves, take care of each other, be kind. Kindness always wins. And see you next time.